She stood there, the conference room's air thick with the scent of fresh bagels turning stale under the harsh fluorescent lights that buzzed faintly overhead like a swarm of indecisive bees, the sharp tang of fierce, wet mingling with expensive colognes that clung to the fabrics of tailored suits and silk blouses, creating a cloying atmosphere that made her nostrils flare slightly with each controlled breath, her mind racing back to the humid evenings in Lahore, where the air hung heavy with the aroma of street-side kebabs sizzling on charcoal grills, and the distant call of muezzins echoing through narrow alleys lined with crumbling brick walls, adorned with faded posters of political rallies and cricket heroes. Her heart pounded like a drum in a Lahore monsoon night, the kind where rain lashes the tin roofs of Gulberg homes in relentless sheets, thunder rumbling through the veins of the city, water flooding the streets in rivulets that carried away debris from the day's chaos. But her exterior remained as composed as the marble floors of the LSE library where she'd spent countless dawns poring over forensic accounting texts, the cool stone under her palms grounding her as she traced columns of numbers that whispered secrets of hidden ledgers and phantom transactions, her fingers smudged with ink from highlighters that bled through pages thin as onion skin, the silence broken only by the occasional cough of a fellow student, buried in econometrics, textbooks, or the rustle of turning pages that sounded like whispers in a conspiracy. The microphone in her hand felt heavier than any textbook she'd ever lugged across campus in a backpack frayed at the straps from years of use, the leather worn smooth from the weight of knowledge and ambition, a conduit for the storm she'd been brewing since her first suspicious glance at the vendor logs on day 2, those innocuous entries that didn't align with the inventory reports she'd cross-referenced during a late-night session in her tiny Chicago apartment. The glow of her laptop screen reflecting off the takeout containers from a nearby halal spot on Devon Avenue. Styrofoam lids, greasy with biryani remnants and non-crumbs scattered like clues on a detective's desk. The steam from her chai mug fogging her glasses as she squinted at discrepancies that grew like weeds in an untended garden. David Hargrove, with his perfectly tailored navy suit that hugged his broad shoulders like a second skin, the fabric a high thread, Count wool blend imported from Italy and expensed under executive wardrobe refresh. The invoice tucked away in a digital folder, labeled benignly as professional development attire, with attachments of fabric swatches and tailor measurements taken in a Milan boutique during a business trip. That coincided with Fashion Week, his cufflinks catching the light in mocking flashes, solid gold engraved with his initials in a font that screamed old money, the kind passed down through generations of boardroom battles and country club memberships, leaned forward from the podium's edge, his smirk widening into something predatory, teeth too white from whitening strips, bought on company, expense reports, labeled client gifts, and reimbursed without question by a finance team too afraid to query. The strips ordered in bulk from a supplier in New Jersey, with shipping manifests she'd already pulled from UPS tracking numbers embedded in email footers. He had orchestrated this moment meticulously, staying up in his Winnetka mansion until the wee hours, the grandfather clock in his study chiming 2 a.m., with a resonant gong that echoed through hardwood floors polished to a gleam by a cleaning service paid quarterly in cash to avoid paper trails, as he altered her sales report, a fabricated disaster of plunging graphs in crimson that dipped and dove like a failing stock on Black Tuesday, projected on the massive 20-foot screen behind him like a public execution in the town square, the numbers manipulated in the dead of night from his executive desktop, IP logs she'd already screenshot and timestamped at 2:03 a.m. Wednesday. With a quick alt-print screen before he could cover his tracks, the glow of his monitor reflecting off the framed Harvard diploma that was as fake as his integrity, a prop purchased from a diploma mill in the Caribbean with a wire transfer from an account labeled Educational Endowment, and hung prominently to intimidate underlings, the frame's glass smudged from fingerprints of admirers who never questioned its authenticity. The room, packed with 200 souls whose collective breathing seemed synchronized in anxious rhythm, analysts in crisp button, downs fidgeting with pens that clicked nervously like the ticking of bombs about to detonate, the plastic barrels worn from endless note, taking in meetings that dragged on with PowerPoint slides bloated with animations and irrelevant clip art mid-level managers clutching Starbucks cups like shields, the paper sleeves damp from sweaty palms that left imprints of desperation, the coffee inside cooling to a lukewarm sludge with grounds settling at the bottom like sediment in a riverbed, clients from Tokyo and due, by watching via glitchy Zoom feeds with subtitles lagging behind the drama by seconds, their faces pixelated in confusion on side screens, eyebrows furrowed in boardrooms thousands of miles away where tea was poured from porcelain pots and decisions hung in the balance like swords of Damocles, held its breath in a vacuum that amplified every small sound, the creak of a chair as someone shifted weight, the swallow of a throat dry from anticipation, the faint hum of laptops' fans spinning faster under the strain of open tabs and streaming video. The silence was deafening, broken only by the soft whir of the projector's fans spinning like a helicopter blade in slow motion, dust motes dancing in the beam of light that cut through the dimness like a spotlight on a stage set for tragedy, and the distant rumble of the L train snaking through the loop below on elevated tracks that vibrated the building's foundation ever so slightly, the metallic screech of wheels on rails, a reminder that life pulsed on outside this corporate coliseum, commuters rushing to jobs with briefcases swinging and earbuds blasting podcasts on productivity, street vendors hawking hot dogs with mustard and onions from carts steaming in the chill November air, the Chicago River flowing indifferently under bridges adorned with holiday lights even in November, strings of bulbs twinkling prematurely in a city that couldn't wait for Thanksgiving to usher in the season of excess. Aisha felt the heat rise in her cheeks, a flush that started at the base of her neck, where her simple silver necklace, a gift from her mother on her 18th birthday, engraved with Sach Zindabad, in delicate Urdu script that curled like vines climbing a trellis in a Lahore garden heavy with jasmine blooms, rested against her skin warmed by the room's tension, the metal warming further with each heartbeat that thrummed like the bass in a dalki at a wedding procession, climbing like mercury in a thermometer left too close to a Karachi summer sun beating down on asphalt that shimmered with heat mirages, distorting the view of rickshaws weaving through traffic with horns blaring in a symphony of chaos. But she didn't crumble. No, that wasn't her lineage, born in the bustling wards of St. Mary's Hospital in Paddington, where the cries of newborns mixed with the chatter of diverse Londoners in accents from Cockney to Punjabi. The scent of antiseptic and tea from the NHS trolleys lingering in the air like a comforting fog. Nurses in scrubs rushing with clipboards and stethoscopes, dangling, raised in the tree-lined avenues of Gulberg Roman, 3 in Lahore, where the call to prayer wove through the air like threads in a tapestry woven by generations, mingling with the honks of scooters painted in vibrant colors and the laughter of children playing cricket in the streets with bats carved from old planks and balls taped with electrical wire to hold them together. She had learned early that silence in the face of injustice was complicity, a lesson etched into her soul during family dinners where her father recounted tales of business betrayals over plates of steaming biryani, rice grains sticky with saffron and cloves, the yogurt raita cooling the spice on tongues that debated ethics long into the night under ceiling fans whirring lazily. Mr. Hargrove, she said, her voice cutting through the tension like a scalpel through silk, steady and amplified by the microphone's sensitive head that picked up the faintest inflection, the subtle lilt of her accent blending British precision with Pakistani warmth, reaching every corner of the room and every virtual attendee in Singapore scratching their heads at the sudden shift in tone, their Zoom chat exploding with question marks and shocked emojis, messages pinging in rapid succession like fireworks in a Diwali sky. Before you finish burying my career on day 5, let me bury yours first. The words hung there, precise, no quiver despite the adrenaline surging through her veins like the caffeine from the black coffee she'd downed at 6 a.m. In her apartment, the bitter liquid scalding her throat as she paced the linoleum floor worn from countless footsteps of previous tenants. Her accent, a blend of British crispness honed in London lecture halls with professors droning on about Keynesian models and Pakistani warmth infused from Lahore Bazaar haggling that he'd mocked in the elevator yesterday at 4:27 p.m. His reflection smirking in the brass panels, polished to a mirror shine by maintenance crews at dawn as he drawled, "Speak English or go back to whatever sand pit you crawled from." His words echoing in the confined space scented with his cologne, Quadigio poured liberally to mask the scotch on his breath, now a weapon sharpened to a fine point, honed on the whetstone of preparation and righteous fury. Gasps rippled outward like pebbles skipped across the calm surface of Dal Lake in Kashmir, where houseboats bobbed gently and shikaras glided with vendors selling lotus seeds, starting from the front row where a young intern named Miguel, badge still shiny from orientation that morning with a lamination not yet scratched by keycards or desk edges, clutched his note, pad so tightly his knuckles whitened, and the paper crinkled under pressure like foil wrapping a samosa fresh from the fryer, spreading to the back where veteran accountants exchanged dyed glances under fluorescent light that cast shadows in the worry lines etched from years of fudged reports and ethical compromises, one whispering to another about the plagiarism scandal at Harvard that David had dodged with a hefty donation of $500,000 wired from a family foundation, the email trail buried but not deleted, recoverable with the right subpoenas she'd already mentally noted, the foundation's tax filings public on GuideStar with deductions claimed for charitable contributions to education. David's smirk faltered, a crack in his armored facade that started at the corners of his mouth and spread to his eyes, narrowing behind those designer frames from Warby Parker that cost more than a month's salary for the Lahore office staff he'd shortchanged on bonuses. The frames chosen from a catalog during a lunch break with options modeled on his phone app. Lenses that now magnified his panic like a microscope on a specimen about to be dissected. He lunged for the laptop on the podium, a desperate scramble that sent his chair toppling with a resounding clatter that made the front row flinch collectively, coffee sloshing from cups onto tailored pants in dark stains that would require dry cleaning expensed later if he still had a job. Liquid, seeping through wool like accusations, through a weak alibi. But Aisha was faster, sidestepping with the grace of someone who'd navigated the chaotic bazaars of Anarkali as a child, dodging rickshaws painted in vibrant colors with tassels, swinging and haggling vendors with scales that sometimes tipped unfairly in favor of the buyer who knew how to argue. Her blazer sleeve riding up to reveal that simple silver bangle, a family heirloom from her grandmother who'd survived partition with nothing but stories and strength, crossing borders with a bundle of clothes and unyielding resolve, the bangle tarnished slightly from years of wear but polished that morning with a cloth dipped in lemon juice for shine. She blocked him with one arm extended, palm out like a traffic cop on Lahore's Mall Road during rush hour when the sun baked the pavement and exhaust fumes hung heavy in the air, mixing with the smell of roasting corn from carts and the sweat of commuters packed into buses with windows fogged from breath, while the projector, unperturbed by the chaos, cycled to the next slide with a soft mechanical whir that sounded almost cheerful in the tension. His email, 3 years old to the day, stamped with the Apex logo in blood, red, that seemed to pulse on the screen like a heartbeat under stress. Addressed to Vendor 47 Solutions Limited. In the Caymans, a shell company with a P.O. box in Delaware that she'd traced through public filings on the Delaware Division of Corporations website, accessed during a red-eye flight from London with turbulence shaking the plane, and a late-night dive into SEC Edgar databases, cross-referencing with Cayman Islands Monetary Authority record, accessed via a VPN to mask her IP from prying IDIs in Chicago, the VPN server in Sweden for extra layers of anonymity. The subject line blared in bold caps, Q3 skim, route through Vendor 47, attach wire instructions. The font enlarged to fill the screen, followed by the wires themselves, swift codes glaring like accusations, IBAN details, routing numbers, amounts in bold sans, serif that screamed from the pixels $150,000 to an account ending in 5512 with a reference note consulting phase 1. That was as vague as the strategic initiatives line items in board reports, $220,000 to another with phase 2 acceleration. Forged invoices on Apex letterhead for consulting services that were as real as the market volatility. Excuses he'd fed the board during quarterly earnings calls. His voice smooth over conference lines from his home office with the fireplace crackling in the background, and a glass of Macallan 18 clinking with ice cubes carved into spheres for slower melt. Voice memos played next, auto-playing in sequence with a chime that pinged like a notification on a phone about to explode with messages, his face filling the screen in high definition from a hot mic Zoom call recorded accidentally when he forgot to mute, tie loosened to reveal a monogrammed shirt with initials DH embroidered in navy thread, whiskey glass sweating in his hand, the amber liquid catching the light from his Winnet, home office overlooking manicured lawns mowed in perfect stripes by a service paid with company funds, billed as grounds maintenance for executive residence. Cooking the books like Gordon Ramsay cooks steak, fast, hot, and nobody notices the missing ingredients. His recorded voice boomed through the surround sound speakers that vibrated the water glasses on the tables, condensation rings forming on coasters like halos around sins, followed by his own laughter, echoed by sycophants off screen whose voices she could identify. Marcus with his nasally chuckle that grated like chalk on a blackboard, Sarah's giggle like breaking glass in a quiet room. Timestamps flashed in white overlay, 14:32 with a note on Lahore black hole offsets, scrawled in the metadata, 15:07 on inflated regional costs to mask Q2 dips. And the chilling 22:41 detailing pin it on the interns if anyone sniffs around the quarterly filings, they'll be too green to fight back. The interns in question fresh, faced from universities with loans piling up and dreams deferred. He roared, face blooming red like the numbers he'd weaponized against her, the shade matching the error alerts in Excel when formulas broke and cells filled with hash arith. Like graves, veins throbbing at his temples, as if his blood pressure was charting its own fraudulent graph, spiking into hypertension territory. Sweat beating and rolling down in paths that carved through the foundation he'd applied that morning to hide the bags under his eyes from late nights. Turn that off, security, now. His voice cracked on the last syllable, the authority he'd wielded like a club in board meetings where he pounded the table for emphasis, would dented from repeated impacts, slipping away like grains of sand through fingers clenched too tight, his Rolex submariner ticking loudly in the hush. A reminder of the $45,000 watch bought with skimmed funds labeled executive timepiece for client meetings, and approved by a compliant procurement team who rubber-stamped everything with his initials. Security hesitated halfway down the aisle, the two guards in navy blazers with polished apex pins that gleamed under the lights like false badges of honor, radios crackling with static and fragmented commands from upstairs a hold position. FBI confirmed, do not engage, eyes darting between David and the screen where his voice continued unabated, looping now on the incriminating phrases for emphasis. If the board asks, tell them the Pakistan office ate the loss like they eat their spicy foods. Wallow it whole. Blame the new girl when she starts. Perfect scapegoat, fresh off the boat. She'll be too busy learning the ropes to notice the noose. One guard, burly with a crew cut and a faint scar on his knuckle from a bar fight years ago outside a Wrigleyville pub after a Cubs loss to the Cardinals in extra innings, pulled out his phone discreetly from his pocket, thumb hovering over the record button as instinct kicked in, the screen lighting his face in blue glow. The other whispered into his earpiece, voice low but carrying in the pregnant pause that followed, stand down, boss is done. FBI en route, confirmed via Channel 3. Agents in the lobby with windbreakers and badges, vests saying FBI in yellow letters bold as the sun. Aisha turned her back on David's flailing form, his arms windmilling like a cartoon character losing balance on a cliff edge in a Looney Tunes episode. Jacket riding up to reveal a shirt untucked and wrinkled from the struggle, addressing the room directly with a pivot that made her heels scrape the stage floor, the rubber soles leaving faint black marks on the varnish, her pacing deliberate and measured, heels clicking on the stage like the tick of a metronome counting down his empire to its final beats, each step echoing through the PA system with feedback squeals tamed by the AV tech in the booth. That new girl is me. Hired Monday at 9:00 a.m. Sharp badge scanned with a beep that echoed my optimism in the security turnstile. The plastic still warm from the laminator in HR. Orientation packet crisp in my hands with its glossy pages full of promises about innovation and global reach and diversity initiatives that were nothing but window dressing. Photos of smiling employees from stock images with faces swapped in Photoshop. Set up to fail by Tuesday 10:15 when my access codes were flagged under review. No explanation in the email from IT, just a generic template that I forwarded to my personal Proton mail at 10:16 from the bathroom stall to avoid camera detection. The stall door locked with a click and the fluorescent light flickering overhead. Publicly executed today at 10:32 with these doctored metrics that painted me as incompetent before I could even unpack my laptop. Stickers, ones from LSE conferences and Lahore hackathons with logos peeling at the edges. But I record everything, David. It's a habit from Lahore, where bosses vanish money into offshore accounts like smoke from a hookah curling lazily in a cafe on Food Street. The apple tobacco flavor lingering in the air amid laughter and backgammon games, and employees vanish into unemployment lines that stretch longer than the queues at date, a darbar during Urs. Devotees in white caps pressing forward for blessings, hands outstretched in supplication, where a single misplaced decimal can mean a family loses their home to the bank, the bailiff knocking at dawn with papers fluttering like white flags of surrender in the breeze, or a vendor takes his life because invoices go unpaid for 18 months. Interest compounding like cancer in the bones, eating away at hope until there's nothing left but a note scribbled in despair on torn notebook paper, and a shattered family gathering around a grave in a cemetery overlooking the Ravi River. The water murky with pollution and the call of crows overhead. He shoved a finger in her face, jabbing the air inches from her nose, so close she could smell the Acqua di Gio cologne cloying over the sour note of panics. Wet that beaded on his forehead and trickled down his temple in salty paths. His breath hot with the mints he chewed to mask morning scotch, sipped from a flask in his desk drawer, the flask engraved with his initials, and filled from a bottle hidden behind fake books in his office shelf. You're done. I'll have you deported by sunset. My contacts at IC owe me favors. From that golf tournament in Arizona, the one with the senator where we closed a deal over cigars on the 18th green. The smoke, curling up into the desert sky, as scores were fudged on the scorecard. His threat hung there like a dark cloud over the room, thunder rumbling in his tone, but Aisha smiled without warmth, a cool, unblinking stare that could freeze the Chicago River in July when tourists flocked to architecture boat tours narrated by guides with microphones and trivia about Burnham. Plan her eyes, dark and sharp as the coal her mother applied on Eid with a steady hand using a matchstick dipped in surmalocking onto his until he blinked first, his lashes fluttering like white flags. Try, I see he already has the file, your file, case number IM 2024-1178, flagged at 8:03 a.m. Via anonymous tip from a burner app I used in the lobby Starbucks, sipping a black coffee, no sugar, while the barista Jamal with his friendly smile and name tag askew notarized my chain of custody log on a napkin for lack of paper, the napkin now folded in an evidence envelope with coffee stains as witnesses. So does the FBI Chicago field office. Tip line hit at the same second, synchronized via server clocks accurate to the millisecond. Agent assigned, Ramirez, a no-nonsense veteran with a crew cut going gray at the sides and calluses from the range where he practiced weekly with a Glock 19, hitting bullseyes at 25 yards. Your Cayman account, frozen at 8:47 a.m. M. Sharp, account number ending in 5512, balance $2. 8 million as of close of business yesterday when the markets closed in Georgetown. With bankers in shorts and polo shirts, now Federal hold in red bold on the bank portal, the banker probably sweating through his linen suit in an office with ceiling fans whirring ineffectively against the tropical heat. You're bored? Live streaming this on the executive Slack right now channel. Hashboard, emergency created at 8:15 by Patel himself with a bot that auto-archives, pinned message in all caps, do not delete anything, do not leave the building, lawyers on stand, buy with retainers ready. Check your phone, David. It's vibrating like your conscience finally woke up from its long slumber under piles of ill-gotten gains stacked in briefcases and hidden compartments. He fumbled for it from his pocket, hands trembling so violently he dropped the iPhone 15 Pro Max twice on the carpeted stage that muffled the impacts, but not the clatter of the case with its MagSafe ring popping loose. The screen cracking on the second fall with a spiderweb fracture that radiated from the corner like veins in marble before Face ID unlocked it with a reluctant beep. His thumb smudging the glass with sweat that left streaks like tears on a windowpane. Notifications stacked like a house of cards collapsing in a gust from an open window. 312 unread messages piling up in real time with previews flashing, Slack pings chiming in rapid succession like alarm bells in a fire drill. Emails flooding the inbox with subject lines in bold red for urgency. Texts from numbers he knew too well. His wife Elaine with her manicured nails typing furiously from the Winnet, a kitchen with granite counters, his mistress Alexa from the Pilates studio with mats rolled under her arm, his uncle from the boardroom in Florida with golf clubs in the background. The top one from Chairman Patel, timestamped 10:34, meeting in my office, bring counsel, do not speak to press. Do not touch your accounts or you'll violate the freeze order with contempt charges. Below it, a GIF from the General Counsel, Evelyn Cho, sharp as her legal briefs filed in court with perfect margins. A dumpster fire with flames animated in looping horror. Caption, "This is fine," in ironic font. Then a voice note from his uncle, gravelly with age and the shock of betrayal uncovered in family trust meetings. What the hell, David? The wire traces back to 09. That donation scandal resurfacing like a bad penny from the couch cushions. The dean's old emails attached with headers showing CC to the development office. Aisha pressed on without pause, her voice rising like the adhan at dawn, calling the faithful from minarets across Lahore. The sound carrying over rooftops tiled in red and laundry lines, strung with clothes flapping in the breeze, pacing with the remote in one hand, gripping it tightly enough to whiten her knuckles like bone china, mic in the other held close to her lips, the foam windscreen damp from her breath, the stage her arena where gladiators once fought, but now truths battled lies in a modern coliseum of glass and steel. $3 million, David. Precisely $3,047,892. 17 if we're accounting to the cent, which I always do with a precision born from balancing family budgets on scraps of paper during lean years when the factory struggled. Rice at 80 rupees a kilo, dal at 120. Every rupee stretched like taffy, routed through fake vendors over 6 quarters like clockwork, laundered as regional marketing trials that existed only in your imagination, and on falsified PDF generated with Adobe Acrobat stamps that didn't match the metadata to timestamps or the font kerning. You bragged about it in men's restroom on the 14th floor at 6:42 p.m. last Thursday. Thought the stall was empty, the echo of your voice bouncing off the marble tiles imported from Carrara and installed at great expense with grout lines perfect as graph paper. It wasn't. Carlos Mendoza, badge 1124, the janitor with calloused hands from years of scrubbing away the messes of men like you with industrial cleaners that stung the eyes, mopping floors that saw more secrets than confessions in a church booth, was cleaning the sinks after hours with his cart of supplies rattling softly on wheels that needed oiling. His Samsung A54 in his pocket on record mode activated when he heard your voice through the door, the app icon glowing green. He sent it to me at 2:14 a.m. Tuesday with trembling fingers typing on a cracked screen. For the new girl, he's evil. God bless. The audio file compressed but clear. Background noise of a faucet dripping in Morse code rhythm and a toilet flushing for emphasis. The sound wet and final like a period at the end of a damning sentence in a legal brief. She clicked the remote with a decisive beep that cut through the air like a starter pistol, and Carlos's faint voice played under David's rant like a counter, melody in a duet of destruction, the janitor's accent thick with Salvadoran roots, a toilet flushing in the background, adding punctuation. David swung at the projector in desperation, his fist connecting with the lens in a crack like thunder rolling over Lake Michigan during a summer storm when sailboats heeled in the wind and waves crashed against the seawall. Glass shards exploding across the stage in a glittering arc that caught the lights like deadly confetti at a parade gone wrong, one sliver nicking his knuckle and drawing blood that welled dark and sticky, dripping onto the podium in tiny patters that sounded like rain on a tin roof. But the backup screen behind the catering table activated seamlessly with a hum that vibrated the air, the image transferring without glitch via HDMI failover, bagels wilting in wicker baskets lined with checkered cloth, redolent of picnics in Grant Park, cream cheese congealing into sad, unappetizing lumps under plastic domes fogged with condensation, fruit platters sweating beads of condensation that rolled down pineapple chunks cut into stars and strawberry halves sliced with precision, the stale coffee smell permeating the air like a bad decision lingering in the morning after. Employees whipped out phones in a frenzy, iPhones in rose gold cases with pop sockets for grip during long scrolls, Samsungs in mystic bronze with screens cracked from drops in the elevator shafts during rushed mornings, one old BlackBerry held by a veteran accountant whose fingers remembered the trackball with nostalgia, filming in bursts of 4K video, stabilizers extending like periscopes from gimbals bought on Amazon, mics protruding to capture every gasp and word with directional clarity. Hashtags erupted on screens as they posted in real time. #Apex fraud trending locally within minutes on Chicago Twitter with geofilters showing the loop. Climbing to national with clips shared by influencers with blue checks. #Hargrove down with 5K posts and counting, including reaction videos from finance bros in suits, memes already forming with his face photoshopped onto falling stocks or Icarus flying too close to the sun. #receipts by Asia going viral with edited videos set to dramatic soundtracks from Hans Zimmer scores with swelling strings and pounding percussion. A social media manager in the second row, badge reading Zoe Chen Digital, with her hair in a messy bun held by a pencil and glasses slipping down her nose from the humidity of excitement, live, tweeted a thread that gained traction instantly. Live from Apex QAH, CEO just got owned by the new hire, mic drop incoming, thread 1/47, her fingers flying over the keyboard with acrylic nails clicking, adding emojis of fire for heat, popcorn for entertainment, and a scales of justice tipping heavily to one side. Aisha stepped closer to the edge of the stage, voice dropping low enough for only the front row to hear intimately, but the mic catching every syllable with crystal clarity, projecting it through the PA system with subwoofers thumping her heartbeat like bass in a Lahore wedding hall pounded by drummers in sequined vests. You mocked my accent in the elevator yesterday, elevator 3, bank C, 4, 27 p.m. Descending from 32 to lobby with the cables humming softly like a lullaby turned sinister. Said, speak English or go back to whatever sand pit you crawled from. Your reflection smirking in the brass panel etched with faint fingerprints from thousands of rides and polished daily. I recorded that too. iPhone voice memos, file name elevator bigot. MP3, started discreetly with my thumb on the screen hidden in my palm as I pretended to check emails. I was born in London, St. Mary's Hospital, Paddington, same ward as half the royals with their security details and paparazzi outside flashing cameras through windows. Raised in Lahore Goldberg Roman, 3. Tree-lined streets with jacaranda blooming purple in spring, carpeting the ground like confetti, not sandpits with camels and dunes like your ignorant fantasy from many Hollywood movies with Orientalist tropes. Educated at LSE top 5% in economics. Thesis on forensic accounting in emerging markets supervised by Dr. Elena Vasquez, now at World Bank dissecting corruption in African supply chains with the same rigor. Her feedback in red pen on drafts that piled up. But you, born in Evanston General with silver spoon intact, raised on Daddy's trust fund at New Trier High School, class of 02 with yearbook quotes about conquests and parties, educated by whichever dean you paid to look the other way after that plagiarism scandal in 09. Harvard Business School expulsion avoided with a $500K donation to the library fund, the check scanned, and in my files with endorsement stamps. Who's the immigrant now, David? Because your money's about to migrate to a federal evidence locker in Quantico with barcodes and seals, cataloged in a database with your name as defendant, and your freedom to a 6x8 cell in Terre Haute with a roommate named Big Mike, who collects protection in cigarettes rolled with prison tobacco and stories of the outside world told in whispers during lights out. He tried to bolt then, face purple as a beet pulled fresh from a Lincoln Park farmer's market stall where vendors arranged produce in pyramids, tie askew like a noose loosening in a failed hanging with the knot slipping. Shoes scuffing the stage with squeaks that betrayed his polished facade of Italian leather soles worn thin from pacing boardrooms. 2 account managers blocked the door, not out of loyalty to her, but because the client from Tokyo, Mr. Hiroshi Tanaka, executive VP of Global Ops with a bow tie perfectly knotted in a Windsor that took practice, was live, streaming to their legal team in Osaka on a secure Zoom link with end encryption and passwords changed hourly, caption in Japanese kanji and English scrolling. Integrity breach confirmed, contract review initiated, potential termination of all agreements with clauses invoked. Tanaka nodded at Aisha through the glass partition, fogged slightly from the room's collective exhalations, heavy with held breath, mouthed arigato gozaimasu, with a slight bow that dipped his head precisely 15 degrees. His team already drafting emails with attachments of breach clauses, highlighted in yellow and footnotes, citing UCC articles. She clicked again, the remote beeping softly like a heartbeat monitor in a hospital room where lives hung in balance. A new slide materialized with a fade transition. A high-res photo of David's wife, Elaine Hargrove, boarding a private jet in Nass, last week. Gulfstream G6, 150, tail number N47DH gleaming white against turquoise waters lapping at the tarmac, time-stamped 14/22 from airport security cam sheet. Accessed via a contact in Bahamian authorities who owed her from a conference in Nassau on offshore banking, captioned in his own handwriting on the back of a cocktail napkin scanned at 600 dpi with fibers visible under zoom. Tell her it's a client retreat. Love, D.P.S. charged to marketing trials. The napkin was stained with rum from a pina colada, swirled with pineapple and coconut cream, and a smudge of red lipstick from lips that weren't his wife's. The photo zoomed in on her Louis Vuitton keepall bag, monogrammed A in gold thread that caught the sun. He paled to the color of printer paper fresh from the ream in the supply closet, sweat beading on his upper lip and trickling down like the wires he couldn't stop, pooling in the collar of his shirt. That's private. How did you? My phone's encrypted with enterprise MDM and biometric locks. She shrugged, shoulders rolling under her blazer with the subtle gold embroidery along the lapel that he'd sneered at for being too ethnic in a memo about dress code. So was my performance review. You posted it on the company intranet at 6:58 a.m. Monday internal portal section employee spotlight with the caption affirmative action hire fail of the week in Comic Sans for extra insult. The font choice a petty jab. I screenshotted it at 7:12 a.m. from my phone before you took it down at 7:45 panicked. #verified with SHA-2 156 to prove no tampering in court. Glass houses, David. Yours is digitally shattered. Shards in the cloud backed up to 3 locations with RAID redundancy and offsite in AWS Glacier. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees despite the AC vents, humming at full blast, pushing cold air through ducts clogged with dust. Goosebumps rising on arms exposed by rolled sleeves and short sleeve polos with company logos fading from washes. Someone in the back whispered, "She's got receipts for days." The voice carrying to the mic like a stage whisper in a West End theater production of Hamlet with soliloquies on corruption. A junior copywriter in the corner, freckles dotting her nose and ponytail swinging with each excited turn, started a thread on Reddit. r/anti-work, title, "New Hire Destroys CEO in Real Time." Full thread with timestamps and evidence links embedded. Upvotes climbing to 10K in minutes as lurkers refreshed feverishly on breaks. Comments pouring in with solidarity and popcorn gifs. He tried charm next. Voice shifting to oily as crude oil slick on water-polluting beaches. Leaning in like they were old friends at a bar in River North, sharing craft beers from local breweries with IPA bitter as his defeat. "Aisha, let's take this offline. Whatever you want. Corner office on 32 with lake view and ergonomic chair adjustable in 20 ways. Double salary to $2. 150K with signing bonus wired same day. Company Carbium WIX. Fully loaded with massage seats that need like a therapist and heads-up display. Amex Black Card, no limit for business development expensed without receipts." She cut him off sharply, stepping back so the mic boomed his offer to the entire room. Every word echoing off walls painted in neutral beige to promote calm. "I want the microphone and the truth and your resignation effective immediately, notarized on company letterhead with wet signature in blue ink and emailed to the board by 11:15 a.m., CC'd to SEC tip line and saved as PDF/A for archiving with embedded fonts." She turned back to the audience, remote in hand like a conductor's baton, poised over an orchestra, waiting for the downbeat in a symphony hall with velvet seats. Every regional head received an email last night at 11:47 p.m. exactly, sent from a Proton Mail account created with Tor for anonymity over a coffee shop, Wi-Fi in Wicker Park, subject line, urgent, Hargrove fraud proof. Attachments, 47 PDF of invoices with digital signatures forged using a tablet. Stylus to mimic loops, 12 audio files clipped and metadata stripped for size using Audacity with noise reduction applied. One Excel spreadsheet that reconciles every missing dollar to the cent with lookup formulas locked and protected with passwords. Check your spam folders, gentlemen. You'll find it between the Viagra ads promising enhancement for your portfolio with pill images and the Nigerian prince offering inheritance in bitcoins with royal seals. If it's not there, check your deleted items. I BCC'd myself on the server copy via ID backdoor access granted at 11:46 by a sympathetic sysadmin who owed me from a favor in orientation when I fixed his VBA macro for report automation. Laptops opened like dominoes falling in slow motion across the rows, screens glowing blue in the dim room, casting faces in ethereal light like ghosts in a seance. Fingers flying on keyboards with the clack of mechanical switches from custom builds and the soft tap of membranes in standard issues. Gasps rippled anew, first from finance in row 5, where a manager dropped his pen with a clatter that rolled under a chair, then ops in row 8 with a collective inhale that sucked oxygen from the air, then sales scattered throughout like popcorn popping in a microwave with kernels exploding. The CFO, Harold Jenkins, mid-50s with balding pate shining under lights like a cue ball and pinstripe suit, rumpled from a sleepless night poring over damage control, stood abruptly, face gray as his attire and the ashes in his untouched cigarette from the smoking lounge, tie loosened like a hangman's knot untied after a reprieve. "David, the numbers, they match the odd discrepancies we buried last year in the 10K footnotes under immaterial adjustments in font size 8 to hide in plain sight. The ones you said were accounting errors and made me sign off on with a non-disclosure agreement thicker than the report itself. pages numbered and initialed, notarized in your office with the golf trophies watching from shelves dusted weekly. David sputtered, spittle flying onto the podium in flecks that caught the light like tiny prisms refracting his downfall. His composure shattered like the projector lens. She fabricated everything, hacked the system with phishing or something, deep fake audio generated by AI, checked the waveforms in Spectro or something. She played the next clip without hesitation, volume maxed to 11, so the speakers distorted slightly at the peaks with clipping that added grit. His voice, drunk at the company retreat in Napa last September, Silverado resort with vineyard views rolling green under golden sun setting behind hills, Cabernet grapes heavy on vines pruned by workers in straw hats. Audits are for poor people without connections. We just move the decimal point. Left or right? Who's gonna notice a zero in the Caymans when the board's distracted by mass growth projections and champagne toasts with flutes etched with the company logo? Laughter in the background, Marcus bellowing like a foghorn over the bay, Sarah giggling with wine, slurred joy and lipstick on her teeth, the old compliance head chuck toasting with a Cabernet glass raised high, the clink audible over the jazz band playing in the courtyard. The CFO sat down hard, his chair creaking under sudden weight like old floorboards in a haunted house, hand over his mouth as if to hold back vomit or words of regret that bubbled up. Aisha walked the length of the head table slowly, heels clicking like gunfire on the polished walnut wood that reflected the ceiling lights in wavy patterns distorted by varnish bubbles, passing nameplates engraved in brass with titles that now rang hollow, CFO, CTO, CMO, all empty now as exec, shifted uncomfortably in seats that suddenly felt too hot, with leather sticking to pants. You bragged you'd break the new girl in front of the whole firm in your calendar invite for this meeting, shared with the leadership team at 8:02 a.m. Today with recurring reminders, congratulations, you broke yourself like a mirror under a hammer swung with precision, and the firm's about to break records, transparency records with full disclosures to shareholders, whistleblower submissions to DOJ with Form TCR, maybe even a Netflix docuseries with reenactments and ominous music scored by Atticus Ross. He made a final grab for the mic, fingers clawing like talons with nails manicured at a salon in Gold Coast where technicians gossiped about clients, the polish chipping from stress biting. She let him take it momentarily, then hit play on her phone, Bluetooth syncing instantly with a chirp that cut him off mid-sentence. The speakers hijacked the room audio, bass boosting to shake diaphragms like an earthquake in the foundation. A new recording, David on a call with an unnamed man yesterday, 7:12 p.m., from his home office in Winnet. Background noise of a Cubs game on TV with WGN announcers calling a home run by Swanson, crowd roaring faintly through open windows with screens to keep out bugs. David's voice, smug as ever with a smirk audible, plant the Pakistan losses on the new hire, make it ugly, redline every metric until it screams failure in dashboards. If she pushes back, leak her address to the press. Say she's a diversity quote, a spy from Lahore, planted by competitors to sabotage. With insider trading vibes, scare her back to Karachi or wherever with anonymous tips. I want her crying on the L train by Wednesday. Badge surrendered at security with tears streaming. The unnamed man, voice gravelly like a lifelong smoker with a pack-a-day habit and coughs punctuated. Consider it done, boss. I know a guy at the Tribune. Knows me from the 08 scandal cover-up with redacted sources. And a PI for the address, ex-cop with a drone that hovers silently at night. The room went feral then, a low growl building from the back like thunder approaching over the prairie, throats clearing in anger that turned to shouts. Someone shouted from sales, voice cracking with rage and coffee breath, "That's a felony threat, 18 U.S.C. 875, interstate communication of threats across state lines." A woman in HR, badge Leela Patel, with a photo smiling professionally but eyes now fierce, stood with phone in hand already dialing 911. "I'm calling the EOC right now. Hostile environment, national origin discrimination, pattern and practice with statistical evidence." Another yelled from legal corner, papers rustling like dry leaves. Title Roman 7 violation. And Ada if they targeted anyone with disabilities in the layoffs with medical records accessed illegally. Security finally moved with purpose, not for protection, but for him. Zip ties from the AV kit in the podium drawer ratcheting around his wrists with a plastic snap that echoed sharply like handcuffs in a perp walk, binding him like the contracts he'd broken with fine print ignored. He screamed, veins bulging in his neck like rivers on a map of conquests failed. "I'll sue every one of you bastards. My uncle's on the board, committee chair with veto power over comp. My lawyers Kirkland and Ellis, partners on speed dial from the Hamptons with lobster rolls." She leaned in close for a whisper so only he heard amid the chaos, her breath warm against his ear, scent of her jasmine perfume from a bottle bought in Liberty Market with notes of rose and sandal, wood cutting through his cologne now sour with defeat like milk left out. Page 42 of the employee handbook you wrote in 2018, Section 4. 2. Any attempt to intimidate based on national origin violates Title Roman 7 and company policy, immediate termination with cause. See you in Discovery, where every email and text is fair game under e-discovery rules, subpoenas for Slack, exports and cell phone forensics, and tell your uncle the board's voting at 10:55. Quorum already met via DocuSign, signatures electronic, and binding with IP logs. They dragged him past rows of former subordinates who refused to meet his eyes. Some turned their backs deliberately with shoulders squared in solidarity. One spat on the floor with a wet plop that landed near his shoe soaking into the leather. Another muttered "Karma's a bitch," under breath loud enough for the mic to catch and amplify. The doors slammed shut behind him with a finality that echoed like a gavel in a packed courtroom with jurors nodding. The vibration felt in chests and water glasses rippling on tables. Silence swallowed the room again, thick and electric, charged like the air before a thunderstorm over the lake when lightning forks across the sky illuminating the Sears Tower in flashes. Aisha exhaled slowly, shoulders dropping a fraction as the tension knotted there from sleepless nights in cyber cafes with flickering neon signs advertising VPN and instant noodles for dinner in styrofoam cups began to uncoil like a spring released. Coffee's still hot, everyone, catering table, help yourselves to the bagels before they go completely stale and hard as rocks, cream cheese in tubs with knives that need sharpening. HR will take statements in the lobby, voluntarily, confidentially, forms with QR codes for uploads of any evidence you have scanned or photographed with apps that add timestamps. And for the record, my Q3 projection was actually up 12.3% before someone swapped my data set at 2:03 a.m. Wednesday night from the executive floor with VPN logs showing a session from Winnetka. IT has the server logs, IP address traced to 192.168. 147, David's desktop MAC address hard-coded in the ARP table. The night cleaner, Maria Gonzalez with her cart of mop and bucket smelling of pine sol, saw the light on in his office at 1:57 a.m., heard typing furious like a storm on a keyboard with RGB lights flashing. The applause started slow, one person in the back clapping tentatively with palms that hesitated as if testing the water. Then a row joining with increasing vigor like a wave building. Then the whole room erupting in a wave that built like a crescendo in a symphony with cymbals crashing. Thundered through the space, feet stomping on carpet that muffled but didn't silence the rhythm. Whistles piercing from the sales team with fingers in mouths wet from licks. Chairs scraping back as people stood in ovation. Phones flashed like paparazzi at a red carpet. Premiere with bulbs popping. Live streams hitting millions of views with counters spinning like slot machines. Comments flooding in from around the world in multiple languages. Reporters outside the glass walls scrambled for comment, pressing against the doors with microphones thrust forward like lances. Badges from WGN with local flair and wind. Swept hair, ABC 7 with national reach and steady cams. Chicago Tribune notebooks out with pens poised. Sun Times cameras rolling. On tripods, even international, BBC stringer with a posh accent cutting through. Al Jazeera crew shouting in Arabic for a statement with translators ready. Geo News in Urdu demanding Aisha Sahiba, Bayan Dijai. With mics extended on booms. She stepped off the stage carefully, ignoring the cameras thrusting through the gap in the doors like spears in a phalanx, and walked straight to the intern trembling by the coffee urn, hands shaking as he poured from a silver carafe with steam rising in curls aromatic with dark roast. The aroma cutting through the tension like a knife through fog. You okay, Miguel? Breathe deep, in through the nose counting to 4, out through the mouth to 6. Like your orientation video on stress management with the animated lungs. He nodded, eyes wide behind glasses fogged slightly from the steam, voice cracking like a teenager's in puberty. You just ended him, like career over, life ruined in 4K with slow-mo replays. He's gonna be on Dateline with Keith Morrison narrating, 48 hours with dramatic reenactments, maybe podcast with true crime hosts dissecting every move over ads for mattresses. She poured 2 cups carefully, black for both with no sugar or cream to dilute the bitterness that mirrored the day's events. Handed him one with steady hands that belied the storm inside, still raging, but contained. No, he ended himself the first time he clicked send on a lie at 3:42 a.m. 6 quarters ago when the first skim initiated with a wire confirmation email. I just hit reply all and forwarded to the FBI SEC IRS, yuck with read receipts enabled and delivery notifications. She sipped the coffee, black and scalding hot enough to burn the tongue, but welcome like a purge, letting it burn away the adrenaline, still buzzing in her veins like electricity, through wires in a Lahore grid during load, shedding when lights flickered and fans slowed. She scanned the room with sharp eyes that missed nothing, spotting the junior analyst from accounting who had slipped her the first tip. Off 2 days ago, a shaky voice memo sent at 3:07 a.m. from a burner app downloaded in a panic from Google Play. Check vendor 47. It's not real. Address is a P.O. box in Delaware, same as 3 others on the list with overlapping directors. I think it's him. Be careful. They monitor emails with keyword alerts. She nodded at him across the chaos, a small smile of gratitude that lit her face briefly like sunlight through clouds. He nodded back, relief flooding his features like dawn breaking over the Margalla Hills green and misty, shoulders sagging as if a 50-pound backpack of fear was lifted by invisible hands, tears glistening in eyes that had seen too much complicity in silence. She set the cup down on a side table with a ceramic clink that rang clear over the murmurs, condensation ring forming on the wood like a halo around a saint, and addressed the stunned crowd again, voice carrying without the mic, now as the room hung on every word like a TD talk in a packed auditorium with spotlights hot. For those wondering how this happened, start with Monday. I walked in at 8:55 a.m., badge fresh from security with its FID chip beeping entry like a welcome, desk assigned next to the printer that jams every 5 copies P laser jet with toner low warning blinking red eternally, paper misaligned from years of abuse by hurried hands, ink smeared on my first report by 9:30 when I printed the orientation schedule with graphs of company growth. David greeted me with a handshake that lingered 3 seconds past professional, his palm sweaty and grip testing, eyes lingering longer on my resume photo printed in color on premium paper, and a comment about how exotic my name sounded, like I was a spice in his pantry from a high-end store like Spice House or a vacation destination in a brochure with palm trees. By Tuesday 9:12 a.m., my login credentials were temporarily revoked. For security, review email from IT with no ticket number or ETA, just a signature from D. Hargrove in digital scrawl. Wednesday 11:47 a.m. My client list vanished from the CRM Salesforce instance with 47 contacts gone mysteriously, reassigned to team pool by user D. Hargrove in the audit log week. Comments blank. Thursday 3:22 p.m. I found my proposals were written in Google Docs history with typos deliberate enough to tank any pitch tay instead of the manger instead of manager, strategy instead of strategy, Pakistani lowercase like an insult in a comment bubble. I printed the originals from version history at 3:25, timestamped PDF with comments preserved and exported, Fridated, day 10:00 a.m. He drags me up here to parade the damage, thinking I'd crumble like a bad pivot table with circular references looping infinitely. She paused, letting that sink in like tea steeping in hot water with leaves unfurling secrets. Eyes sweeping the room to meet gazes. Encouraging nods from women in blazers and hijabs pinned with brooches. Fist pumps from juniors with fresh MBA and student debt. But I didn't come unprepared. Back in Lahore, my father lost his textile factory to a partner who siphoned funds the same way. Fake invoices for machinery upgrades from ghosts in due. Buy with no serial numbers. Consulting fees to a cousin's LC with no employees or office but a virtual address. I was 12, watching him rebuild from zero in our garage with sewing machines bought second, hand from Sunday Bazaar in bundles, selling my mother's gold bangles at the market to pay workers their dues in cash envelopes thick with rupees, sleeping on the factory floor to guard the machines from creditors who came with threats at night waving legal papers. Lesson 1. Always back up the backups. Google Drive synced hourly with version history. OneDrive for redundancy in the cloud. External SSD in a locked drawer with biometric lock. Printed hard copies in a fire safe bolted to the floor with expansion anchors. Lesson 2. Trust no one who smiles while stabbing you. Check their eyes for the glint of deceit like a fake diamond under light. Lesson 3. When they hand you a knife in the form of false data, sharpen it with facts and metadata EXIF stripped or preserved as needed. Lesson 4. Record everything, because memory fades but metadata doesn't eggs. If data in photos with GPS coordinates. Blockchain timestamps, if you're fancy with Ethereum smart contracts for proofs immutable on the ledger. She pulled out a USB drive now from her blazer pocket, held it up like a trophy under the spotlights that made the silver casing glint like a star in the night sky. 1 TB capacity formatted in XFAT for cross-platform, encrypted with BitLocker and a password only she knew combining birth dates and Urdu phrases. This has everything, timestamps down to the millisecond from server clocks synced with NTP, metadata preserved in original files with headers intact, chain of custody intact, signed by a notary at 7:45 a.m. in the lobby Starbucks, witnessed by barista Jamal who stamped it with the store logo. Fun on the envelope, his shift starting at 5 a.m. with espresso shots pulled. FBI agent Ramirez is downstairs with a warrant U.S. District Court, Northern District of Illinois, case number 24, CR 789, signed by Judge Alvarez at 8:30 after at her desk after a briefing on the evidence package with affidavits attached. He's been building this case for 18 months from tips trickling in like rain in monsoon. My tip just lit the fuse at 11:47 p.m. last night with the full dossier compressed in zip. The junior analyst, he's the one who noticed the pattern in 2022 during a routine reconciliation of vendor payments in QuickBooks, got ignored by compliance who labeled it anomaly and a ticket closed prematurely, then demoted to mailroom sorting envelopes by hand with paper cuts as punishment. He reached out to me Sunday night at 11:02 p.m. after seeing my LinkedIn post about starting at Apex with a photo of the badge under office lights. Message read, "Welcome to hell, run, but if you fight, here's vendor list attached in CSV, cross, reference with Delaware sex filings." They murmured in waves, heads turning to the analyst timid wave from him with a hand that still shook slightly but steadied, now standing taller as colleagues patted his back with slaps that echoed encouragement like high fives in a locker room. She continued, voice gaining strength like a river, swelling in monsoon with tributaries joining. David thought he was untouchable because his uncle sits on the compensation committee, approves his $400K bonus plus RSU that vested quarterly with acceleration clauses. Because his college roommate from Northwestern runs compliance, signs off on internal reviews with a wink and a golf invitation to Cog Hill. Because he golfs with the auditors at Medina Country Club every third Thursday, handicap 12, but always wins the bets with $1K Nassau presses, cash in envelopes folded in the pro shop locker. But golf scores don't survive forensic accounting tools like IDEA or ACL. Analytics that flag duplicates with Benford's law violations. Neither do deleted emails. IT recovered them from the Exchange server backups at 4:17 a.m. today using a tool called Encase Forensics for full bit by bit imaging of the drives with hash values matching. The tech who did it, Raj Patel, senior sysadmin with no relation to the chairman, glasses thick as bottle bottoms and fingers nimble from keyboard shortcuts. He's getting a bonus from the recovered funds $50K wired today to his account ending 7,890, and a promotion to CTO, effective noon with access keys handed over in a ceremony. She clicked to the next slide with a flourish that whooshed the transition. A detailed org chart with red lines crossing out names like a crime scene diagram in a detective show on CBS. Arrows pointing to connections in neon green for kickbacks. These are the enablers, the network that propped him up like scaffolding on a crumbling building. VP of Finance, Marcus Lee, signed off on every fake wire transfer with his looping signature in blue Pilot G20. 7mm pen that he refilled religiously, initialed every forged invoice in the corner with dates fudged. Regional Director, Sarah Klein, approved the marketing trials that never happened but had mock-ups in Canva. Pocketed 10% kickbacks wired to her sister's account in Milwaukee. Chase ending 3,345 with deposits matching to the penny on the 15th of each month. They're next. Emails don't delete themselves. Gmail archive keeps forever with labels. Outlook PSD files recoverable with tools. Neither do Slack messages where Marcus joked about Cayman vacations on company dime. My ties with little umbrellas included in the resort package, and Sarah replied with palm tree emojis. Airplane, money bag, and when's the next deposit? Q4 bonus loading with a GIF of dancing money raining down. Marcus stood up in the third row, tie askew like a crooked arrow pointing to guilt. Sweat beading on his forehead in rivulets that followed laugh lines now furrowed. This is defamation. Libel in real-time broadcast. I'll have my lawyer from Sidley Austin sue for millions in damages. She interrupted without missing a beat, voice cutting like a blade through soft butter melting on naan. Call him. Tell him to meet you at 26 Federal Plaza, room 312, interrogation suite with one-way mirrors and recording. Subpoenas dropped at 9:15 a.m. via process server in a yellow vest. Your assistant, Lisa Wung, with her efficient bob haircut and color. Coded calendar. Already forwarded your Google Calendar to Ramirez, including the deleted events marked private with recovery from bin. Those lunch meetings with vendor 47 at a restaurant called La Belle Epoque on Rush Street. It burned down in a kitchen fire in 2018. Arson suspected by grease buildup in vents. Insurance payout $1. 2M to a LLC. Tied to you with EIN matching. Google it. Street View still shows the rubble and yellow caution tape fluttering in the wind. Sarah bolted for the side exit then, heels wobbling on the carpet like a newborn foal on ice, purse swinging wildly and knocking over a water glass that shattered into crystalline pieces, scattering like the projector glass across the floor. She didn't make it past the potted ficus by the door, its leaves rustling in protest, as if alive. Two plainclothes agents, badges flashing gold, FBI shields under windbreakers zipped halfway, materialized from the crowd where they'd blended as attendees with lanyards, one grabbing her elbow gently but firmly with a grip honed from arrests and raids. Ma'am, you're coming with us for questioning. Wire fraud, conspiracy to commit 18 U.S.C. 1343, and that's just the starter with RICO possibles. Miranda rights apply. The room erupted in whispers that built to a hum like bees in a hive, phones capturing every moment in 4K with zooms on faces pale with realization. One employee starting a TikTok duet with the original video, filters adding fire emojis and slow-motion replays of the grab. She raised her voice over the din, commanding attention like a general on a battlefield, with flags waving in the wind. To the rest of you, check your inboxes again, refresh multiple times with F5. I sent a second email at 8:55 a.m. from the same Proton account with onion routing, subject clean slate protocol immunity window. Anyone who comes forward with evidence before 5:00 p.m. today gets immunity. Consideration from the U.S. Attorney's Office, Northern District, in writing on letterhead with seals. After that, you're on your own. RICO charges possible under 18 U.S.C. 1961, racketeering with predicates stacking like Jenga. No exceptions, not even for the coffee runner, Javier, who delivered David's lattes, oat milk, 2 pumps vanilla, extra hot with foam art of leaves or hearts, while he plotted in the break room at 7:45 a.m. Daily with whispers over the espresso machine hiss and grind, or the receptionist, Tina with her manicured nails and French tips, who overheard him bragging about the new diversity hire being perfect cover for the Lahore skim, while she filed his expense reports for private jet fuel at $5 a gallon with receipts crumpled. Hands shot up like a classroom on the first day of school, with apples on desks, eager and terrified fingers waving for attention with rings glinting. Questions flew in a barrage. What about the Nopper retreat, bills with the wine tastings at Opus 1? The Vegas trips on corporate card with show tickets to Cirque du Soleil, the brother-in-law outsourcing to a firm with no website but a LinkedIn with 1 employee. She pointed to a woman in the back, mid-30s with HR badge, Amanda Ruiz. Ponytail tight and glasses slipping down her nose from sweat beading. You go first, stand and speak into the mic if you can reach the stand. The woman stood on legs that wobbled slightly like bamboo in wind, voice shaking but gaining strength with each word like a runner finding pace on a track, knees locked to prevent collapse into the chair. He made us flag all complaints from the Pakistan office as cultural misunderstandings in the HR system. JIRA tickets closed with a template response copied and pasted from a doc. No investigation or interviews. I have the memos, 47 of them exactly, saved in a folder called Do Not Open DHI, only on my personal OneDrive synced to my laptop at home. He said if we didn't comply, we'd be next on the list.